Yeah. Good a time as any to gavel in, and hope that we can gavel out quickly. All right, we do have a quorum in our Public Works Committee today. There is no chair report of consequence to give. I'm going to look at Courtney to see if you want to update anything.
The fastest traffic calming open application window is ongoing right now through July 22nd. If you have neighborhoods that applied last time, they have been contacted and asked if they would like to resubmit their application. If you have new neighborhoods that want to apply for the program, just make sure to urge them to get their applications in by the 22nd.
All right, so for the viewing audience, if your neighborhood needs traffic calming, it is open enrollment now through July 22nd. Get your applications in.
Can I pose one more quick question?
May.
You and I had spoken, Courtney, about in lieu of or in addition to your weekly email, but just kind of paving, like alerts and heads up. Like I've got so many streets in my district right now that are being paved that I had no idea were being paved.
Okay.
Or that like one street got finished and another one didn't, and like I'm just not feeling very aware of what's happening in the paving space.
Okay.
And so there's the now, but then there's also more long-term,
Right,
like
month out kind of thing.
yeah, would be
Okay.
helpful. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for staff before we dive in here? Resolutions look okay. So I've got RS 2019-1829 authorizes Pilcher Building Partners LP to construct and install aerial encroachments at 144 2nd Avenue North. And RS 2019-1830 authorizes Forpant LLC to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 210 4th Avenue North. I think we can take those on consent unless anybody needs to pull one. Got a motion?
Second.
And a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Bills on second reading. We've got a couple here. I'll do Councilmember Hall's first because he is present, and we'll try to not delay him. BL 2019-1643 requires all existing culverts, inlets, storm drains, and ditches within the T2 Rural Neighborhood Policy and T3 Suburban Neighborhood Policy to be upgraded, retrofitted, and/or constructed to current stormwater management manual standards by January 1, 2025. Councilmember Hall, do you want to introduce us to this bill?
So, of course, he would say no. But actually, what we've been doing, we've gotten really close in these conversations, trying to incorporate this into the 10-year plan for Public Works. So we've got a meeting actually in 2 days. We moved to defer yesterday in Budget and Finance so that we can have that meeting and get some specific numbers, and it's going to be referred back to that committee also.
August the 6th.
So we're good.
All right.
It's
Do you want a
deferred
one
till
meeting
August
deferral?
6th. Yes.
All right. We've got a request from the sponsor for a one meeting deferral.
One meeting deferral.
All right.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor of one meeting deferral, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. BL 2019-1733 amends the Metro Code of Laws relative to landfill creation and expansion. Councilmember Hall, did you want? Wait. Landfill? Landfills?
Landfill.
We've got your landfill.
Jackson Law.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'll definitely.
Since you're here, do you want to introduce us?
So, you guys remember us passing Jackson Law a while back. All this does is run concurrent with Jackson Law. We're taking the state criteria for landfill expansions and putting it or embedding it in Metro Code. It's just a very simple process.
Okay. And did you want this committee to go ahead and run this and discuss it today as scheduled?
Yes.
All right.
And just so for the record, if I get Sharon to say hello. So thoughts on this bill?
Yes, so it is just like Councilman Hall said. It's basically taking TCA. TCA outlines several criteria that landfills are supposed to be, landfill applications are supposed to be looked at, and he is wanting to put that into our ordinance so that it mirrors TCA.
And as
Kind
far
of like
as
a copy and
as
paste.
far as someone who might have a landfill that's getting close to being full, would this cause me any problems in the future?
And no more than the Jackson Law already does.
I guarantee you, it actually simplifies things because part of that criteria is what you're getting commonly from constituents now, just like I am. It takes into account when someone applies for an expansion, for example, the impact on economics in the area, the impact on odor, the impact on site, things of that nature now are going to be part of the specific criteria that council will use to determine if that should continue.
And we had someone, and this is just for the committee, and I don't know if he knew, we had someone that we put on the solid waste board recently who told the committee that the Jackson law that we passed did not apply to his landfill, that the sponsor worked for months and months to get passed. It didn't even apply to the landfill that he was telling us about. It only applied to my landfill. And so, which I voted against that because I thought there were issues with that. So I'm just letting y'all know that the current Jackson law doesn't even apply to his landfill.
All right, before we go any further, let's get a motion on the table. Second, all right, we can continue discussion. Councilmember
So
Ripp?
I was just letting everybody know that we sit there for months and months listening about the Jackson law, and it didn't even apply to the sponsor's landfill. And I think we should have been able to get that information at the beginning of our discussions rather than at the end, and I voted against it. It only applied to my landfill, so I'm just putting that out there.
So let's clear that up for this application. I mean, this is just making Metro Code laws consistent with TCA, to my understanding. Does it have anything that causes new concerns?
And see, I do not know the exact, I haven't even done a deep dive in this. The gentleman who was appointed to the Solid Waste Board used to be an attorney for TDEC, and he was the one that told us point blank that the Jackson law that we passed did not apply to the landfill out in District 1.
Yeah, so after it passed, I don't know that anybody in Metro was aware. Waste Management, who owns that landfill, Southern Services landfill, appealed to TDEC to have their landfill grandfathered in. It was a bit of a shock, I think, to all of us. We had no idea that they were going to do that, and that the landfill actually preceded the original passing of the Jackson law on the state level.
So it was grandfathered as such?
Yep.
Okay.
Does it include expansion as well, or just?
Yeah, the whole thing. It still has to go to the solid waste board, but the solid waste board, the last time there was an expansion request, denied it, and the board was taken to court, and we lost. So it's a little discouraging when all that effort went into effect to, you know.
And ironically, we didn't have that pushback from Solid Waste Board during the process with Jackson Law. So you got.
And I don't even know if it was pushback. I think he was just sort of making a statement that, you know, doesn't qualify. I mean, it's grandfathered in.
I guess I would ask the sponsor, how does this actually advantage Nashville as opposed to doing nothing?
Well, it runs, again, it's just for clarity's sake. Once we did implement Jackson Law, this is just one more step in that same direction by taking those standards and criteria.
And I guess
Because it's still going to apply anywhere else that a new or existing landfill needs to come into play or expansion.
And I guess that's my issue is if state law spells out where the Jackson law applies and does not apply, and the language is exactly the same, I would think that the state law would preempt anything we do with the exact same language, specific to certain areas of town. And I don't know, and that's what I'd like a legal opinion on exactly what this applies to and what it doesn't, because we voted before on something applying to a major industry in this county, and we didn't know what we were voting on.
My understanding was, it specifically applied for landfill, but I think back then discussion was does not apply vertical or horizontal. I forgot which way. That expansion does not apply, but otherwise new landfill, we apply Jackson law, and then we decide or subsequently found some recycling usage, which was not really intention of the Jackson law. In a strange way, Jackson law caught with this expansion of the recycling. So it seems like we are having intent was one way, and actual application becomes a different way than we intended.
I think Councilman Hall, if you don't mind, I think Councilman Hall and I are on the same page, because he and I both realize the way Davidson County is growing and the number of people, there's no reason for new large waste landfills to be put anywhere in this county, because all you do is ruin large areas around these landfills, and it's just not something good to do. There's other
Which is why
places.
that TCA code specifically mentions, as I was giving an example before, of some of the criteria that they have to utilize, whether it be at solid waste or in council. These are the criteria for determining whether an expansion is justified or the creation.
And I'm fine moving it along, so we can ask Jameson on the floor tonight if he'd like to, just give us a.
Well, and I appreciate, Ms. Costonis, is this your area of?
Public Works is a client of mine, but I wouldn't be prepared to give you an opinion on that off the cuff. I would have to follow up.
Yeah, I guess I would say, Councilman Hall, I concur. I feel like we spent so much time in this committee talking about the Jackson Law and trying to understand the implications or the unintended consequences and how state law contravened with whatever, and to Council Lady Johnson's standpoint. And I felt like we asked all the questions we knew to ask, and we voted how we voted with the understanding that we had, but it still was not what folks thought. So I would just ask that by way of explanation from you or Mr. Jameson, or, that we just make sure with Metro Legal that, I appreciate the effort, but that we're just doing everything that we can do to behoove the county.
Am I hearing?
That was actually one of the concerns that was brought forward during creating the actual
Are
legislation.
we on second or third?
We're on second.
Second.
So you could do a 1 minute defer.
I'd like to move to defer just so we can get Jameson in here, or somebody who, the gentleman from the Solid Waste Board who knew all about this. He seemed to know more than anybody. I was like, where was he when we were looking for this last
We've
time?
got time. If we deferred this a meeting, we could still address any issues.
Is it okay with you?
Is that a friendly amendment, or would you?
I'm trying to be friendly. I just want to find out exactly what we're doing to make sure that you and I are making sure that we're protecting what we want to protect.
Correct.
So if that's okay with you, I want to move to defer one meeting and ask to have
We still have time.
Okay,
Mr. Jameson
I'll
to come.
second that then.
All right, we've got a motion and a second for 1 meeting deferral. Discussion on that. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we'll get that done. Thank you, Councilmember Hall. I think that's all of your items, yes. All right, we have at least one thing that we'll discuss. Let me see if I can do everything but BL 2019-1735, and then we'll come back to 1659. Let's do bills on second reading, see if we can do the rest of these on consent. BL 2019-1734 amends an existing sewer contract and authorizing the granting of a permanent easement to Harper Valley Utilities District of Davidson and Williamson Counties, Tennessee, on certain property owned by the Metro government. BL 2019-1736 abandons existing water mains and fire hydrant assemblies to accept new water mains and fire hydrant assemblies and to acquire easements through negotiation, condemnation, acceptance for the 12th Avenue South Water Main Improvement Project Phases 2 and 3 for various properties between Belmont Boulevard and 12th Avenue South.
I would like to ask one question on that. Do I need to pull it to be able to ask a question?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So we'll pull that. BL 2019-1737 abandons existing public sanitary and combination sewer mains, combination sewer manholes, inlets, and easements, and to accept new sanitary and sewer and combination sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, combination sewer manholes, and inlets, and easements for 5 properties located on Broadway, Lyle Avenue, and 20th Avenue South. So that's interesting. I'm not on those yet. Let's see if we can do those. We might need Councilmember Bedney, but I think he's still in the plan. Let's move those to the heel, and we'll just go with, we'll come back and not do consent. BL, this one I am on, but let's come back to BL 2019-1734. This was the Harpeth Valley Utilities District. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next is BL 2019-1735. We do have a letter to approve on this. This establishes a public stormwater quality project fund to implement projects that benefit stormwater runoff quality and improving the Metro Water and Sewerage Services and regulations governing the payment into the public stormwater quality project fund for development projects unable to comply with existing water quality standards. Let's get a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Councilmember Henderson, and then some discussion.
Yes, I was just going to ask if staff could explain this to us and just kind of the context and what process this has been through to arrive at this, please.
Rebecca Doan is our content expert, so I think it's going to be in all of our best interest if she were to provide those
That
details.
would be great. Yes, Ms. Doan.
So there are certain primarily redevelopment projects
that have difficulty meeting our water quality regulations. So they're unable to install the bioretention areas or the underground units or ponds, or however they decide to meet our water quality requirements on the site. And so far, these have either had to get waivers to meet it or to go to the Stormwater Management Committee. So this is permitted in our stormwater permit from the state, that we are allowed to establish a fund for payment for those sites that can't meet the full water quality, and then use that fund to build water quality projects elsewhere in the county. We've received probably 2 or 3 requests for this a year for a number of years. We finally decided to set it up. We're still trying to make sure that projects that can do some water quality on their site do some water quality. But this is a way to get better projects in the ground that treat more water quality and grant relief to sites that are encumbered either by building sidewalk to sidewalk, or they have certain site limitations where they can't meet it.
And so I guess my question would come with what you're saying, like trying to encourage a certain level of water quality, right? So then is it an option ever to just 100% kind of pay out, or how do you establish kind of the framework for how you are kind of in lieu eligible or payment eligible?
So it's going to be best engineering judgment. We're going to let our development services staff review those projects. We are trying to set the bar so nobody can ever completely not do any water quality on their site. You know, even if they can build a small, like urban bioretention area or something, and send some of their stormwater to it. This will allow for sites also to do more green infrastructure, where they, can just put a green roof on a portion of it, but that doesn't meet their full water quality. But then we can, build water quality elsewhere.
And can you speak to how, if at all, trees factor into this in meeting water quality?
Right. Trees are one of the items that we've listed as eligible for the fund. Of course, we would certainly have to do some form of conversion to show that we're meeting a certain level of water quality that we've waived for the site to get it. I think street trees and trees that are going to mitigate over impervious surfaces will be the ones that are targeted if we use trees for it. Some of the other projects that we've looked at doing, there is an impound lot for the police department that parks a lot of cars that probably leak a lot of things. And so one of our projects will be to try to put water quality on that site to treat it. We've also looked at building bioretention areas at the Harris-Hillman School, because it's all imperviousness that kind of runs straight off into the combined sewer there. So if we could route that into a bioretention area that puts the water then into the ground instead of into the sewer system, those would be some things we look at. We're not exactly certain how popular it'll be. This has been asked for by the development community and also by the person who's over our watershed improvement fund. So we figured if the environmentalist and the development community are both wanting to use this, it's probably something that will be pretty useful.
And it's allowed by our state permit as well.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then the value and the cost that you might see in the as a part of the legislation, those are based on actual construction dollars, and then through the state permit, it requires a factor of 1.5 times that. So if you're going to go down this path, then it's going to cost more to do it, and so that hopefully that would encourage developers to look for ways to do it within their site.
Okay, and so the development community though is asking for this, but does it apply to a certain portion of, like, as far as our classifications? So, we've looked at commercial multifamily sometimes for things, single, two-family. I mean, it's just across all
sites that receive grading permits, so sites that involve the disturbance of 100 cubic yards of material or 10,000 square feet.
Okay, so 10,000 square feet would be kind of at that residential end when you have to have a grading permit. Okay.
This is not for the residential side.
Okay. All right, so this is only for commercial
sites
and
that receive
multifamily.
the full grading permits.
Sometimes residential does have to, sadly.
Sorry.
Yeah. I've had some in my district.
It wouldn't apply to the single-family residential infill permit. It would require just for our grading permits, which do have some residential in there.
Okay.
I think another thing that's important to know is that wherever that development's taking place, the intent is to spend the money in that same watershed. So,
Okay, appreciate that.
Councilmember Henderson, do you have anything else that should give us pause on approving this?
No, nothing gives me pause. I just had a few questions.
No, thank you. Any other members have questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? BL 2019-1736, this was for the 12th Avenue South Water Main Improvement Project Phases 2 and 3 and for various properties between Belmont Boulevard and 12th Avenue South, along 12th Avenue South, Kirkwood Avenue, Sherborne Avenue, 9th Avenue South, Craig Avenue, Leland Lane, and Gale Lane. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, I appreciate the opportunity. I would move approval.
Okay, got a motion
Second.
and a second.
Great. And I had asked Mr. Honeysucker about the timeline for this water project, which will ultimately follow behind this, and that's really what my questions are related to. He says they'll probably happen later in 2019, so the next council member will actually deal with it. But a specific question was, anytime we create this opportunity for a water project, there ultimately ends up being money that has to be set aside for ADA improvements. And so just early on in this project, I want to ask whoever I need to be asking, can the council member have input on which ADA projects are chosen? Because sometimes there's an option of filling gaps in sidewalk as opposed to just taking up last year's ADA ramp and putting in this year's standard ADA ramp.
So Councilor Allen, our project manager will work with Public Works in identifying what those should be. And so I don't see any reason why we can't get you involved in that.
Great. It won't be me. It'll be somebody else. And they won't know to ask unless I tell them.
Yeah,
So.
that's certainly doable, but you're right, but a certain amount, a percentage of money has to go toward ADA compliance, whether it be sidewalk repair, a
Right.
ramp, or whatever. And there's a priority to get some of those things done. So once again, we work with Public Works, and certainly
With Public Works, okay.
Yeah, so we have our project manager and their inspector or project manager agreeing on what those should be. It wouldn't be a problem having the council person
Okay.
involved
They could
in
be
that.
involved in that conversation, and I don't know where you put that in the notes to make sure it happens, but I will put it in somebody's notes to just make sure they know to check with y'all.
Well, John and I will communicate back to the project manager.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
That's my only question.
All right, in which case we're safe to move ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I am on the rest of the bills, which we should be able to take, at least bills on second on consent. BL 2019-1737 abandons existing public sanitary combination sewer mains, combination sewer manholes, and inlets and easements, and to accept new sanitary sewer and combination sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, combination sewer manholes, and inlets and easements for 5 properties located on Broadway, Lyle Avenue, 20th Avenue South. BL 2019-1738 abandons existing public water and sanitary sewer main manholes and easements, and to accept new water main fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manhole and easements for 24 properties located along 33rd Avenue North, 35th Avenue North, Trevor Street, and Delaware Avenue, known as Sky Nashville. NBL 2019-1739 acquires permanent and temporary easements through negotiations, condemnation, and acceptance for the Century Farms Development Water Pump Station for properties located at 5348 Cane Ridge Road and Cane Ridge Road, unnumbered. I'd accept a motion to approve all.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we've got all of those approved, and that brings us to bills on third reading. And we have only BL 2019-1659, amends the Metro Code pertaining to the provision of sidewalks. I think many of us are unclear as to why this is back in Public Works on third reading. Councilmember Henderson, as you are the lead sponsor, I guess I would accept maybe a motion to approve, and then we can talk about it.
I move your approval.
All right, got a motion and a second. Councilmember Henderson, anything you care to offer on this bill?
Yeah, this is just a follow-up after we've been observing the implementation over the last year, now almost 2. Kind of watching the patterns in BZA, talking to staff, and what it is essentially doing, the strategic framework established by the legislation remains intact entirely, but what it is codifying is an internal process wherein, with our professional experts, engineers in public works and stormwater, if someone seeks a variance, or as it's referred to in this bill, a waiver, in whole or in part, and it's not codifying like in all these cases you get waived. You have to request it, much like you would previously for the BZA. But I think what we were finding is that the discretion that we had afforded to the BZA to address what the development community thought would be problematic and was not necessarily unforeseen, like corner lots, large frontages, things like that. We gave the BZA the discretion to say, oh, well, build on this arterial but not on this neighborhood street, or, you know, do the contribution on this side but not that side, and so forth. But that discretion kind of got blown up a little bit in that folks were getting out of both, like they weren't building the sidewalk and they weren't having to contribute in lieu. And so, and it just ran the gamut and varied depending kind of on, you know, the mood in the room at the time. You know, pendulum swang over here, pendulum swang over there. Like, and so the thought was, because there were so many short-term rental and sidewalk things before the BZA, and the time that was taking, that it would perhaps be a better process internal, but that it should still have a you know, a public-facing and reporting component to it. It will still have council member notification, you know, when those waivers are being sought. And so basically it's just codifying that process. Additionally, it's setting a 3% cap on contribution in lieu, 3%, no more than 3%. I believe it's 3 at this juncture. Initially 2 is filed, but upon recommendation of planning, 3. So no more than 3% of the construction value, because we had seen some, you know, if you just had a very large frontage that just seemed like, wow, that's pretty high. I mean, it's a fair fee, or a contribution in lieu, but that changes that a little bit. And then additionally, it is now based off of assessed value, and that's one change there. So that is the summary of the changes, and with that, I would renew my motion for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, does anyone have questions?
I just want to say bravo to Councilmember Henderson. This was an amazing job, and she
I appreciate that.
worked really hard on getting everybody to come.
Thank you.
Others? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You get approval. Thank you, Councilmember. And that completes the work in the Public Works Committee. Thank you.